Ever feel like what you learned in school and what your job actually asks of you are, well, two totally different worlds? You're definitely not alone. It seems like there's this growing gap between the classroom and the workplace. And today, we're going to break down exactly why that is and what we can do to start building a bridge. So, let's dive right in. This whole topic really kicked off with one pretty shocking story. So picture this. You're an engineering manager, right? You're interviewing a new electronics graduate. You ask them a basic, fundamental question, hey, can you draw the symbol for a resistor? And they can't. I'm not kidding. This actually happened. It's the kind of thing that just stops you in your tracks and makes you think, was that just a one-off? A single unprepared candidate? Or is it a sign of something much, much bigger, a real systemic problem? Well, that's exactly the question we're going to tackle. We'll dig into the evidence, get to the root of what's going on, and then explore some real solutions for this disconnect. Okay, so part one, why are companies dissatisfied? Let's start by looking at this from the employer side of the cable. What are the symptoms they're seeing that make them feel like new grads just aren't hitting the mark? All right, so at the heart of all this is a concept you might have heard of, the skills gap. In Mandarin, they have a great term for it, 学用落差, which literally means the gap between learning and using. And this is so important to get right. This is not, I repeat, not about graduates being less smart or less capable. It's about a mismatch, right? A fundamental misalignment between the skills being taught and the skills the modern workforce actually needs. And when you actually look at what skills companies say are missing, it's really interesting because it's almost never about the grades or the core technical knowledge. Nope. Survey after survey, year after year, it comes down to these crucial soft skills. Things like communication, working in a team, being proactive instead of just waiting to be told what to do, and a big one, being able to handle a bit of pressure. That's what they're really looking for. And this gap, it creates a massive headache for HR teams. I mean, think about it. They put all this time, all this money into finding and hiring new talent, only to watch them walk out the door a few months later. It's this thing people are calling flash quitting. So the problem isn't just hiring people, it's hiring people who are truly ready for the workplace and are going to stick around. And just to be super clear, this isn't just a few companies grumbling. The evidence is everywhere, and it's consistent. You see it in the endless complaints about soft skills. You see it in the actual data on high turnover rates. It pops up in survey after survey. And you even hear it in the public debate about whether all university degrees are created equal anymore. Okay, so we've laid out the symptoms, we see the problem, but why is this happening? Let's get into part two, the deep roots of the problem. So how did we get here? Well, you can think of it as a perfect storm in higher education. Back in the 90s, there was this huge boom. Tons of new universities opened up. But right on the heels of that, the birth rate started to decline. So what happens? You've got way more university spots than you have students. That created this super intense competition where some schools, just to stay afloat, had to lower their admission standards. And the end result of that is a really uneven quality of education across the board. And it's not just about the education system itself. There's also this cultural divide in expectations. Think about it. On one hand, you have companies that, at the end of the day, are paying a salary in exchange for real, tangible work. But on the other hand, you have many new graduates who are coming in looking for personal growth, for meaningful work, for flexibility. And when those two different worlds collide without a lot of communication, you're going to get friction. And if we look even deeper, there are other strains on the system. For one, university courses can be really slow to change, while industries are moving at light speed. Then there's the fact that some of the most important stuff, like work ethic or how to actually collaborate well, it's just not formally taught. And on top of all that, you've got this resource imbalance, where bigger universities can offer way more industry connections and cool resources than smaller ones can. So yeah, it sounds pretty complex, right? But it's definitely not hopeless. Which brings us to part three. How do we actually build that bridge? The first and maybe most important step here is to stop playing the blame game. This isn't about lazy grads on one side or clueless companies on the other. It's just not productive. The real solution is about working together to build a much better, much smarter path from the classroom to the workplace. And here's a really cool idea for how to do that. The triple threat graduate model. The idea is that a degree should be more than just a list of credits. It should be a three-part package. You've got your traditional academic credits, sure, but you also have industry-recognized certificates that prove you have specific skills. And finally, you have a portfolio, actual, real-world projects that show what you can do. It makes your skills totally tangible. So if we're going to bridge this gap, where do we focus our energy? It really comes down to a three-pronged attack. First, way more work-integrated learning. We're talking internships, real projects. Second, we have to actually reform the curriculum to focus on those soft skills and find ways to measure them. And third, and this is a big one, companies and universities have to partner up to define what skills are actually needed. Okay, so what does that look like in practice? Well, here's a roadmap. For schools, it can mean making soft skills courses a requirement to graduate. They could also work with companies to create these micro-credentials that are super valuable. And for companies, they can create real structured onboarding programs, with mentors and 90-day plans to help new hires succeed and cut down on that whole flash quitting problem. So as we get ready to wrap this up, it all comes down to one clear idea. This is a shared challenge. Look, it's just not realistic to expect universities to have a crystal ball and know exactly what every company will need in 5 years. And at the same time, we can't expect companies to foot the entire bill for training people from square one. The truth is, everybody in this equation has a part to play because everyone has a stake in the outcome. And this really says it all, doesn't it? For this to work, you need everyone pulling in the same direction. You need the education system to adapt. You need the corporate world to invest. You need students, the individuals themselves, to take the initiative. And you need government policy to create a space where all these partnerships can actually happen. It's a 4-piece puzzle, and you need all the pieces. Which brings us to our final question, and it's one for you to think about. In this whole complicated dance between schools, companies, and individuals, who should make the next move? And maybe more importantly, what should that move even be? Because one thing's for sure, this bridge isn't going to build itself.